Unless you're a survivor of emotional abuse, you have no idea what it means to fight daily battles in your head with a person you're no longer in contact with. I want to talk about that questioning that goes on, the what ifs and maybes, when you are questioning, what's happened at the end of the relationship. So the cycle of abuse is the ongoing rotation of the idealisation, of the devaluation and of the discard until you get to the final discard. And it might be even on some of the small discards that you're querying what you've done, and then they come back and you go back to the beginning and everything's okay, and this is reaffirming and confirming and bonding you to them. So they are very insecure people and they can't risk you abandoning them. So the cycle is the same. The 3 stages are the same. It's just that they might appear slightly differently for different people. Some people it might be quite, they don't experience some of the reactions as strongly as others. I see them as children trapped in adults' bodies, and I see them, and in fact you can, if you look back and see how they dealt with stressful situations, it will give you an indication at what age that trauma happened for them. But I also had trauma that I needed to deal with, and this isn't just one relationship. This is quite, I've done this a few times now. Looking back, I can see this cycle. I did a lot of healing myself, and I had a lot of wounds that I needed to heal, and there's a lot of 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds and 8-year-olds, and that was me taking responsibility for my wounds, and those are the wounds that allowed this behaviour to happen in the relationship. Those wounds were the wounds that allowed this person to treat me the way they did, or these people to treat me the way they did, and not have the assertiveness, not have the self-love to turn around and say, hey, that isn't right, I'm sorry, we stop here, this behaviour does not work for me. That's the responsibility that I've taken on. So we live in a theta state up until from birth to about 7 or 8 years old. And everything we're told and everything we see, we take on as the truth. The theta state is a hypnotic state. So it could be our parents, our grandparents, our teachers, our carers, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, friends. What we hear, we take on as the truth. And we believe these people are here to look after us. And we believe what they tell us. And how they behave, we copy and mimic. And it's not until we get a little bit older, maybe say 14, 15, when you start to go around people's houses and have a bit more of an awareness and notice that they don't behave in a certain way, or they speak to each other in a certain way, that you start to see the differences in your family dynamics. These are patterns that repeated generation to generation. So if you're treated in a certain way by one of your parents, they've learnt that behaviour from their parents, and they've learnt that behaviour from their parents, and it's this cycle that goes on right the way through families. So these are the questions that you run through in your head, that you've taken them from what was amazing about you. They've then devalued you and told you that they don't like these aspects. You're completely confused and you're running back through these scenarios. This is all about chemicals. This is all about the chemical change and the confusion that happens. This is about wanting to get back to that idealisation stage where everything felt safe, when you were getting your doses of oxytocin and you were feeling safe in a relationship. And that's where literally those emotions are what you're trying to recreate. That's what you're trying to get back to. And during the discard stage, you probably didn't get any closure. So you're being told everything's your fault, and leading up to it you will have been told what you're doing wrong, and you're trying desperately to fix everything, but the goalposts are being moved, because in a way this is a game. They have no intention, but at this point they can't show you their cards because they they can't risk that it doesn't work out, particularly if they're laying the groundwork for another relationship, and they don't want to mess that up. They want to make sure that they can move on quite quite confidently. The questioning is so painful. These conversations that you have in your head, and this is about understanding why, and this is about trying to calm the body down, trying to calm the mind down. And that's really easy to say, but really hard to do when the hormones that and the the stress hormones that are being released into the body by the hypothalamus, the hypothalamus is little. They look like little, they sort of look like little seahorses, and they sit on either side of the brain. They're responsible for the stress hormones. And what happens is your brain, it actually shuts down. Up to 40% of your brain, when it goes through these traumatic cycles, actually closes down. And this is why you can't think straight. This is why you might be questioning everything, because if you actually laid that out in front of you and you could think about it rationally, or if you were advising a friend from afar, you'd have a completely different take on it. And the bonding that's happened and the way the mind's games that were played has put you in this place. I know it's really painful, and I know it's really confusing, but I hope at some point you will actually see this as an amazing gift. If you can heal from this, you will feel amazing. So how can we calm the body down? You're probably raging with stress hormones, and this can go on for years. So I've seen stories of people that 20, 30 years out of a relationship are still experiencing this trauma. Still experiencing it. We need to calm the body down. It is on super hyper alert. The stress hormones are raging around the body. It's about listening and tuning into the body and understanding. This is the first thing. Before we can do anything else, we need to calm it down. Maybe a meditation or something that you can do and sit for a few minutes. Meditation doesn't have to be hours on end. It can be just a few minutes. We're trying to tell the body that it's safe. We're trying to calm it down and explain that actually we're here. There's no threat at this particular moment. Whether that's going and having a Reiki session, whether that's going and having a massage, whether that's sitting just quietly for 2 or 3 minutes, whether it's in the car or whether it's at home in bed before you get out of bed in the morning or when you go to bed at night, the clarity comes back and you can start to think a little bit clearer. Another thing you can do is write that story out. It might be a 20-year journey. It might be a 15-year journey. See the cycles. It might only be a short period of time. It might have been a short relationship. But write that out, warts and all, everything. See the behaviour and unjustify. Because at the moment you're taking the blame because you were told it was all your fault. And we need to unpick that. These are invisible chains that they've tied you up with, and it's like the elephant that's been chained up for years, and somebody removes the chain and they still don't move. You're stuck, and we need to deal with that. Write the story out. It's cathartic anyway. Step back and just say, if that was my friend Lucy, if that was my friend Sarah, if that was my friend Jane, what would I say to her? That is really powerful because you're actually taking yourself out of the situation. Ask yourself, if you were presented, if your friend said to you, this is what's happening in my relationship, what would you say to them? What advice would you give them? We need to reprogram. We need to calm the body down so we can think clearly. Drink plenty of water. Eat plenty of healthy food and nurture yourself. take baths with salt. Salt baths are amazing. There's something grounding about them. Exercise, walk or run or yoga or whatever it is that's your thing. Find any way of getting the adrenaline out of your system to calm yourself down. I hope that is helpful. Please press subscribe or like. If there's anything, drop some comments. If you've got ideas of how to help others that worked for you. We're trying to calm the monkey mind, the chimp down so that we can think clearly, and instead of justifying their awful behaviour, that you can see it for what it was. I believe that there's a wound from childhood and that is yours that needs healing, and this is why you were in this relationship. This is why you attracted this person, to highlight to you what needs to be healed. I found when I was healing from a relationship, a lot of 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds and 8-year-olds, and I'd done a lot of work before following other relationship breakdowns. And I've been in physically abusive relationships as well as emotionally abusive relationships, and I found the emotional abuse was actually harder to deal with. It's happened so slowly, you don't know it's happening, and you end up protecting the person that's abusing you. You end up turning to them for support, even though they're the ones that are abusing you, because that's what they've done. This is about power and control for them. So I'm sending you loads and loads of love.